Hi YouTube, welcome to my second video. It's going to be on the subject of the 5150 that I mentioned yesterday on yesterday's video. And I arbitrarily picked the subject because I don't really like going in order on things anyway. I just like jumping around at my leisure. So I figured that would be a good thing to talk about because the people I met there specifically are on my mind a lot. One person in particular, two technically, but one especially. And so I wanted to go into that for this video. So my 5150, I think my main emotion about it was that it was an unjust hold. I felt very angry because when it was happening, I didn't even know what those, well, I knew what a 5150 was in theory. I didn't know what they played out like. It was kind of just like an idea. It wasn't really, by profession, I've always worked with special ed or autism in some way, depending on if it was in assisted living or then later I became a teacher. So I'm very familiar with disabilities, especially intellectual ones. And when I went to the 5150 hold, from what I gathered, they're legally for if you're a threat to yourself and others. So not necessarily prison, but almost similar to it, I guess you could say. Like you didn't commit a crime, but maybe you're pre-crime is kind of the impression I got of them when I worked in the assisted living facility. That's when I first learned what a 5150 ever was, because there's assisted living programs, probably I assume everywhere, but in the particular place that I worked, if you had an intellectual disability and you were over the age of 18 and you needed assistance living alone, both physically and financially, then I was one of the caregivers that would stay with you around the clock if you had to have it, because basically they're for the completely disabled. Like typically it was the intellectually disabled, but from time to time I guess it could have been physical disabled too. I think that would have also applied, because if I remember correctly, sometimes there were people who seemed more physically disabled than mentally. But I just ran across what seemed to be intellectual disability and autism seemed to be the common, or a combination, because those can also be combined diagnosis. So that seemed to be what I ran into the most as far as like what I saw at that particular company and what I have like my experience with. So I guess I'm very familiar with autism, the autism spectrum, both from non-functioning, no, okay, because it's a spectrum. So there's autism that's high functioning, and then there's autism that's low functioning. So it's almost weird, because if you were to think autism in general, when you think that word, you think disability, but in some cases it's almost like a super ability. There can be very high intellectual like children that are autistic. Like it can be crazy how smart. So it's definitely a spectrum. When you see lower functioning cases, it's probably also, there could also be intellectual disability that plays a huge role, or any physical disabilities, or if there was like prenatal drug use or prenatal alcohol drinking, that usually plays a huge role too. If there's any intellectual disabilities, that usually like ended up being something that I noticed a lot, was things happening during pregnancy that were unfortunately preventable, was often a lot of the causes of like some of the intellectual disabilities that were on the low functioning side, that seemed more like you would deal with like nonverbal, needing assistance with restrooms, like going to the restroom, needing assistance with showering, needing assistance with anywhere you need to go, making sure to eat, taking meds, things like that. So that was my job. And then teaching had similar duties, just obviously less demanding. And so I knew what 5150s were because I would see them, students and adults that I worked with, get 5150, but I never went with them to the 5150. I would just see them get taken in the hold and then go, and then obviously come back 3 days later. So it was just something I knew lasted about 3 days. Seems somewhat like a little bit of a prison hold, and happened if you were a threat to yourself or others. But every single time I had seen it administered, the person really was being a threat to themselves. So I never looked at them and made any opinion. It was kind of just like prison. Like, it was just something that existed in the system that I knew of vaguely, didn't have any personal experience with, knew no one personally that went, other than work relationships that obviously the people didn't tell me what happened after they came back. You know, many were nonverbal, and so I wasn't really getting an impression of what I thought of 5150 was. I thought it was only for serious situations. Like, I thought that it was really hard to get there, just like prison. Like, you had to be, like, there had to be a reason, because the people I saw going really did, they were harming themselves. That was the way they got there, self-harm. So in the cases that I was actually scared for them, so it seemed fine. Like, the system didn't offend me at the moment. Then I realized when I got there, um, I almost felt right at home, because I was like, oh, I feel like I'm at work. You know, no biggie. Like, everybody's, I was scared at first. I got taken, I felt like wrongly, because yes, I was having somewhat of a little bit of a Kanye West breakdown, but that was because due to my chronic pain. I was having breakdown because I was hiding the fact for years that I was in chronic pain, and I was starting to kind of lose it, and people were finding out. And so I don't feel like I was a threat to myself or others. Like, yelling and saying you're tired of dealing with, like, you know, stuff isn't a threat. Like, I feel like what I was doing was normal, but was being perceived as dangerous, so that my family could 5150 me and make it framed out like I'm so unhinged and whatnot. And not even my family, I would say my mother specifically is my guess. I don't think my dad has the intelligence to come up with any sort of plans, so it couldn't have been him. That would have required him to take a break from zoning out, like, on the news or whatever, and he not gonna do that. So I knew it was my mom. She's the only one that sits there and puts thought into things, and that I know of, and that sits there. I knew it was her choice to send me to the 5150, but my number one thinking the whole time was, but why? Because I'm not threatening anyone's life or mine. I'm acting the way everybody else acts when they're in pain and it's chronic, and doctors are saying they can't, like, last I checked, like, I've had friends get cancer, and I saw how people acted when they got told they had months. I volunteered in my youth for hospice, and I have been with the dying. Like, I see how people act when they're dying. It's not pretty, and it's also not crazy. It's normal. Like, welcome to hell. It sucks, and I can cry about it. Like, I feel like my mom thinks that I can't have strong feelings, and if I do, I either have to be medicated or like put in some institution where they medicate me and say that I have a disorder or something. But I never get diagnosed with anything. I get cleared and so I really don't think it's me with the disorder. I've always believed it was her, and I've always felt very unjustly framed by her as more deranged. I think she's the deranged one, and I've never ever got to properly voice that, because I feel like she always blackmailed me with something. In my youth, it was just the livelihood issue. In my 20s, I feel like she used more emotions, and then now there's nothing to use because she's not in charge of my livelihood, and she doesn't have contact with my emotions because they've been frozen to her for longer than she realizes. So, you know, I have the type of relationship where I think I got chronic pain because I'm sick to my stomach, because my mom's so temperamental and really psychotic, crazy, and insane is kind of the way I've always thought of her, that I have been putting on this front that I like her a lot and that I miss her a lot and that she's a great mom. I've told her more times than I can count, like, you're the best mom ever. I love you so much. You did so much for me. Like, I tell her what I think she wants to hear so that she's not raging, is pretty much the way I see it. And then now that I'm older, I feel like, why would I care to be dealing, like, if I'm almost 40, why am I going to stay on the phone if you rage with me? Why am I going to allow you to twist history? Like, the last time I had been at her house alone, she yelled at me, and I remember thinking, okay, if you're like yelling at me and I'm this age, like it was just a genuine thing. I still don't get it. It's like, what in her is making her think I'm gonna care to ever answer your phone calls again, pick up the phone, like, and she doesn't apologize for anything. She just pays bills or something, medical bills I have that have racked up. She'll just pay a few bills here or there. And I literally noticed the pattern. Rather than take responsibility, she'll just pay a bill. And then she'll text me, I paid a bill of yours. I go check the account. And it's annoying because I'm 36 and she still hasn't figured out. Like, I have a hippie mindset. Like, I did plant medicine in my youth. Like, I don't value money, because if money meant anything, then Elon Musk wouldn't be all depressed, getting millions of different girls pregnant and never finding love because he's apparently miserable. Like, if he's not going to be happy with all that money, fame, glory, invention, like, then I won't be happy with it either. I can promise you that. Because what am I going to buy that's going to make me so happy? What? There's nothing on Amazon I want. I don't even have Amazon in my phone because there's nothing on there I want. There's like, I really came to the conclusion where I was like, this is all junk that I don't want. But it sure takes a long time to go to work, overtime, this, that, and the other, to make money to buy these things I don't really want. You know, I don't really care too much about new clothes. Like, as long as my body looks good, I'm happy in any outfit I wear. Like, it's really just my body I care about, not the clothes. Like, as long as my hair looks good, like as long as I'm happy with it, like, I don't need to be dyeing it, bleaching it, buying all kinds of products for it, putting it, like, if you're happy with yourself, you really don't need to be buying all kinds of stuff, doing all kinds of stuff. Like, there's a lot of silly little things. And my mom hasn't figured out that I figured that out. And I kept on trying to help her. Like, the plant medicine I did when I was 25 is what opened my mother effing eyes. And I kept on telling her, like, look, Mom, she was very anti-drug, very Christian, but that was hypocritical because no one as evil as her in the mind could ever be Christian. So I was like, okay, you're really not anti anything, like BS. Like, you can do plant medicine, was my belief. So I thought my mom needed to do some plant medicine. She needed to transform. She still does. If I had one wish for my mother, it would be that she did plant medicine, any kind. Hopefully the stronger the better. She needs to hallucinate. She needs to go to the forest and hallucinate and find Jesus Christ or God or Buddha or whatever the F, because she's constantly changing her religion, like, to hopefully, like, but she's never finding anything deep or meaningful. She's just always looking for money. That's literally all she's looking for, cares about. She drains me with that because she masks it with, no, I'm so much more. You're not. You're just looking for money. You just want money. You want more respect than you deserve. You want people to see you as bigger than you are, better than you are, when you're just right there with everybody else. Like, that's it. You took our Aunt Connie way too serious in idealizing the most evil, most demented minds as cool. Idolizing Disney villains is not cool. You're not cool for idolizing evil archetypes at your age. Grow up. Literally grow up. I've been wanting to tell you that my whole life. Grow up. She spent more years of my life crying than she did talking. And when she talked to me, deep into my teenage years, it would be in baby voice. In baby voice. When I'd be talking to her in adult voice, like, and then she has the nerve to talk to me the way she does, like, yell in my face, nose to nose sometimes, yell in my face. Like, what makes you think anyone's gonna put up with you for any reason? Like, I'm worried about you. You're just gonna end up alone if that's how you act. That's a very foul way to go about things. And then to just gaslight people. I paid a bill, so you have to forgive anything I did. No one cares after a certain point about money once you've hurt them enough to where there's nothing worth having you around, because nothing sounds better than healing. It's like when you're thirsty in a desert. Like, it doesn't matter how many dollar bills are over there. Water sounds good, and that's it. Healing sounds good to me, and that's it. Not a relationship with anybody toxic, and that includes my, like, I have it in my head, I don't have a mother and I never did. So how am I going to be sad? Like, all this emotional guilt tripping is manipulative, and it sucks because that's all you have to manipulate people with. Is I encourage anyone watching this, don't let anyone manipulate you with something as cheap as emotions. That's cheap. That's real cheap. Real cheap. Like, it works. I'm not saying it's not effective, but that's the reason it's cheap, is because it works. To do something so cheap, that, I mean, that's like targeting a child. Yeah, it's gonna work, but that means you're cheap. You're cheap because you can't target somebody that takes actual skill, like charisma and charm, to lure over. You just go and get something cheap and easy because you're cheap and easy. Like, and that's what I've come to with my mom. Be cheap, she be easy. Like, I'm not, no. And just crying all the time to try to erase responsibility. I'm so sick of crying. I used to actually care, but now I see most people use it as a weapon, to just be crying hysterically all the time out of the blue for nothing, when you're thinking, like, last I checked, we're all grown up. Like, what are you crying all the time for? My mom will just be crying, crying, crying. That gets old. If someone's just crying all the time and it seems iffy, assume they're manipulating you and don't put up with it. Like, that is so wrong, to fake emotions that you don't feel to try to get people to either do something or not do something. That's bad karma, in my opinion. I wouldn't collect that kind of karma. And if you're in a relationship that someone's toying with you like that, I would get out of it regardless who they are. I don't think anyone's life's worth that kind of annoyance, misery, and frustration. And sometimes being alone for a period is better than being in toxic associations. You can't get rid of things immediately, and everything does start in the mind, though, and in the heart. So maybe you can't get out of your situation. Maybe you're blackmailed into your situation, maybe physically. Maybe you're blackmailing yourself into your situation. Maybe you're some mental prison you're in. It's always mental first. So address your mental prison, because you're not going to physically get out of any condition. Just like me, I won't physically get anything until I mentally address, demons is a good way to look at it. People like to say they're inner demons when they talk about things like that. So physically address, to physically address your problems, you mentally address what's been keeping them so comfortable in the first place in your mind, soul, and body. So and that will take honesty, because you have to be honest with what your shortcomings and your selfish tendencies are. Because if you're in relationships with people that are using you, then likely you're using them in some way. You have to be honest with what you're doing in associations that are making you so unhappy. Like, you're never going to only ever be a victim or a villain. You're going to be a little bit of both at all times. Those are the things that keep us stuck in those trauma bonds, is that you're never exactly the villain and you're never exactly the victim. So you feel guilted to stay, or guilted to leave at the same time. So you're kind of stuck, and you make yourself stuck. It's a mental construct. Like, you're allowed to do whatever you want with your life. Like, you don't have to feel guilty to do anything. Like, I've heard people say they stay in their toxic situations because they don't think they deserve any better, but that's just a mental construct, that you think you don't deserve any better because you aren't any better. But that could just be the past, starting from yesterday and backward, and from today forward there could be a better version of you that has more boundaries, morals, and then you can start asking for more of others from that day forward. Like, you don't have, like, that's just a mental construct. So I mean, you're always welcome to stay in a negative place. Like, I would never say you must get out now, because the more you beg people to do things doesn't help any. But I would like to put out there to those who are tired of their own hells, because hell is a place that I believe it's a misunderstanding to think you get sent to hell by a god that's punishing you. I think a more accurate way to look at hell is a place that you send yourself in response to your own agreement that you made, probably by coming here in the first place, through karma and through reincarnation. I believe in reincarnation. So I believe that you must make a contract of some kind and then come and get a body, because I think more in the spiritual, not so much the religion of any way. Like, so I kind of think that we put ourselves in the hells that we're in so that we can essentially get ourselves out of it. I don't think any there's that really much of an external. Basically, it's no one's responsibility to save you. It's your responsibility to save you. And if you don't want to be saved, there will come a point where everyone's going to be okay with that decision. And that's what my envisionment of hell is when you're suffering and nobody cares. Because maybe there comes a point where that happens, because plenty of people are in that situation. When I was 5150, that is what I saw. I saw a lot of people who looked like they were suffering and in misery, but it was just like, I didn't see criminals. I just saw, it almost looked like it should be at a hospital instead. And when I asked people who were more lucid, like, what is it that you did to get here? So I could get an idea of how people got there, because I was wondering, like, I was very, very, very upset to be there. I felt like I was held illegally. Felt like an illegal hold. Because I wasn't attacking anybody or myself. I was just upset about my chronic pain. And I do believe that I kind of just got put there at my mom's desire to create a mountain on a molehill of drama. Like, let's make a normal situation something insane so that I can control more by creating chaos and then being the driver of like, she did create chaos. So she calls it help. She calls it, solving problems. But I think she could have created chaos. And I have the right to say that. In person, she just yells, screams, throws things. So I never get to say anything. But you can't yell, scream, or throw things through a camera. So you could just throw a little fit in your room by yourself. And no one cares. And that's where some people have to be at. They have to be at a situation where they're left alone to throw a little fit by themselves and no one's going to care. I think that's why my mom sought after me, or why people seek after me that are so toxic in my family, is because so that they can have someone to cry to on the phone, because they don't have any friends or family of their own. And if they do, it's superficial because they're so damn mean. No one's going to stay around long. And if they do, they attract people that are just as mean as them. So they end up getting abused in their relationships because they find people that are worse than them in the abuse. That's what I think happens to these abusive types of people who literally get into relationships to abuse, and control and like extract money, like the gold digger types. I think they end up biting off more than they can chew when they like are trying to use a man or something, and then they find out, oh, that man's more of a psychopath than me, and then I got used, and then they cry about how they got used, but like they leave out the part where they got with that guy in the first place to use them, or gender role completely reversed. Doesn't matter. Like, this is just a people thing, it goes in so many different directions, any scenario, so I feel like that's my mom too. She'll cry about when she's hurt, but she just fails to mention the part where she's part of the problem, maybe causes the problem, maybe is a problem herself in many ways. That is where it's like, are you a victim, or are you pretty much just rogue, narcissistic, selfish, and grandiose? Because that's what I kind of think she is. I've even contemplated that she's whatever Kris Jenner is. That she acts like that. That's unfortunate for me. The more I think about it, the more exhausted I feel. But anyway, so in the 5150, I met a lot of people that were autistic, clearly, and had intellectual disability. And I believe that's what they were there for only. I don't think much else. Like, there was no... I'm sure maybe some people needed the hold, but overall what I was noticing is it kind of just seemed like a place where throwaway type people went, just people from the streets, or people who, a lot of them looked like just adults with autism that were on the low functioning side. And one of them came up to talk to me, looked about my age, and I could tell he had autism. He looked like he would have been one of the students in my class, like as far as functioning. And he was extremely sweet. So I thought to myself, how did he end up here? Like, he seems like a nice person. Like, it doesn't seem like he would have hurt himself or others. Like, he doesn't seem violent. And talking to him, I could tell, like, well, yeah, he does seem like a handful. Like, he seems hard to take care of. Like, he looks like he needs a lot of help with certain things. He's definitely disabled, but he was smart. He could form sentences. Like, he clearly could dress himself, shower himself. I mean, he looked like he could easily live at home. Is like, if I was his mother, it looked like he could live at home. Why was he here was what I was wondering, because this is terrible conditions. Like, it was terrible conditions. Like, it was nothing like, you couldn't call it like even like 1-star hotel. Like, it wasn't. It was like maybe like a mission or something like that, equivalent to that, like a homeless camp or something. Like, it was not where you would send a child that didn't do anything wrong except for be born disabled. Like, and I saw a lot of adults there. And so I asked him, how did you get here? And he said he was walking and kept walking at night, and like it was for his safety essentially or something like that. He was probably intellect of maybe like a toddler, but for some reason like the vocabulary seemed on point. Like, it was almost like he walked that fine line of basically almost functioning but yet not at the same time, so he could almost incorporate into society but yet not at the same time. Like, it was kind of the it wasn't exactly severe, but then in some ways he was. So I could tell he wouldn't pick up things like sarcasm, or he wouldn't pick up things like that were really complex. Like, you could tell he was innocent minded essentially. And he had a whole bunch of letters in his hands that he was reading, and he just kept reading them over and over again. And so I asked him, like, what are those letters? And they were poems, and they were poems about him, like love poems, like loving type things. And I mean, honestly, they were worded beautifully. The poem was pretty. It was something about a mother to a son, about her beautiful boy, and how much this, like, his voice is like a note of whatever. I can't remember it. It was very pretty. Well, whatever. It was nice. And he had presents. Like, he had shoes mailed to him. He had a hat on that he said his mom sent him. So basically, he was being sent gifts, and he was being written letters all the time, reassuring him, that he's loved by his mother, from his mother. And it was giving me the impression that he had been there for a long time. And it had been a long time. I can't remember exactly how long, but it had been months. Like, if I want to remember correctly, it had already been there for like 7 months, and which must have been exhausting, because I had only been there for, I think, total it was 17 days, and that felt like a lifetime. So I can only imagine. And so I looked at the letters, and I was kind of noticing, like, his mom seems, how come she's not coming to get him, is my question. Like, why is she writing all this nice stuff and making him feel like everything's gonna be okay or whatever, when he's clearly like not happy to be here? He's scared. Like, why can't she come get him? I think it's been months. Like, that just seemed really off to me. And then I started thinking, I think he's here because she doesn't want to take care of him, and this is how she's not dealing with an adult with autism, because it is a lot of work. It is. I worked at an assisted living. Like, I know how much work it is. Like, it is a lot of work. But something that I noticed is, like, parents will argue and get really mad, and I do understand it's probably a touchy subject for sure. Like, when you start talking about, it seems like sometimes adults with mental disabilities get pawned off by their parents unfairly, I feel, into situations that are not ideal, but like, nobody cares because they can't speak up for themselves, and they have childlike minds anyway. And I feel like you see someone's true colors, like, you see their soul when they're in a situation like that. Like, that mom looked sadistic to me, because you look sadistic if you're telling your son, oh, I love you, but you're having him live in this homeless camp type entrapment. Like, he literally begged me, pray for me that I get out of here one day, as I left. And he seemed so desperate. Like, and I pray for him every time I think about him. And if you're listening to this and you have it in you, please pray he gets out one day, because I think about that guy all the time. And I don't feel bad for me at all, because I met him and I feel bad for him. Like, yeah, I'm going through stuff, but I have my mind on, and I at least have a chance out of it. And I thank God every day for this, my mind being straight, and for what abilities I do have, because I have a chance of getting out of my mental prison. those born with disabilities that are more stuck, like, how are they going to get out, especially if you have a sadistic parent like mine? So those souls need prayer, and I think it's always good karma to send out a friendly prayer, a friendly energy, and whatever you do, however you think of when you think of something like that, like when it comes to others, like always help send a prayer out to those who, or positive energy out to those who are in compromised situations, being blackmailed, and have mental or physical disabilities that are preventing them from believing that they have the right to speak about how they really feel. Like, that's always someone like that I think it's good karma to throw something positive out for. I do, and I would love it if someone else did too, because I think those are really tough situations to be in. I know that. And if you're in a situation like that, I'm definitely I'm here for you in the way that you can be, I guess, for an internet association. This is definitely a place where you would be understood, and I wish the best for anyone in any situation they're in at this moment. Everything's going to be fine. Everything can get better. Everything's always okay, and everything will be okay. Bye. Have a nice day.